I'm coming to Boston. I'm bringing hell with me.
Promises kept by the Trump administration, bringing fear to several local communities.
I mean, last week was hit very hard, but it has been like that since he got into office.
ICE agents descending on Greater Boston, taking 370 people into custody. Border Czar Tom Homan says the 5-day operation started last Tuesday. Homan says the majority of the people in custody are, quote, significant criminals.
I grew up in this community, and that's not what I grew up with.
Gladys Vega with La Colaborativa in Chelsea says fear is now running through immigrant communities.
People are not showing up to doctor's appointments. They're not sending children to school. They're not going in.
In a stunning display of federal force, ICE agents encircled Boston University in an early morning operation, deporting over 1,500 undocumented students within hours. The raid unfolded with precision, leaving students, faculty, and administrators in disbelief. As tensions around immigration continue to rise, this event has ignited protests, legal challenges, and national outrage. But beneath the emotion lies a larger question. What happens when enforcement reaches deep into academic strongholds? In this video, we uncover the raid's origins, the student response, and what this moment signals for colleges across America.
Can you believe this is only day 4 of Trump 2.0? But it turns out Republicans have already found the new star of their next campaign commercial.
I'm not going back to Haiti. Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
That has to be fake. It almost sounds fake, doesn't it? I mean, it doesn't even, how can that be real? Well, it is. By the way, that Biden fanboy is a Haitian gangbanger with 17 prior convictions. And Fox's Bill Malugin spent the night embedded with ICE operations in the Boston area as they grounded up all these criminals.
Boston University became ground zero in one of the largest campus deportation operations in U.S. history. With tactical coordination, ICE teams surrounded key campus buildings and began detaining students at dawn. Over 1,500 were taken into custody, many without warning or time to respond. What began as a normal day turned into chaos, with legal experts questioning the constitutionality of removing students so abruptly. For many, it marked a turning point, a chilling reminder that no institution is immune from federal immigration enforcement. One by one, students were flagged through campus records, surveillance footage, and internal reports. No alarms, no warnings, just quiet identifications made in the early hours. ICE moved fast, rounding up individuals with no time to pack, call family, or seek counsel. By the time most realized what was happening, it was already over. No hearings, no appeals, just buses. The choice to target a major university stunned even seasoned observers. These kinds of mass actions typically happen near border crossings, not in ivy-covered lecture halls. But that line has now been crossed, and with it, a message sent. Nowhere is off limits. What happened at Boston University may very well be a blueprint for future operations on American campuses.
Too many communities have seen it happen right in their own neighborhoods, where masked individuals who are not wearing badges openly or identification are coming in unmarked vehicles, jumping out, snatching people off the streets. I'm just stating that these tactics are the opposite of what makes communities safer.
She should go out on a ride-along with Bill Malugin, who just last month in Boston, in one 24-hour period, half a dozen criminal aliens who committed horrific crimes.
But the thing is, they don't care that the protesters and the rioters are wearing masks, but they're upset that ICE is wearing face coverings. Why? Because they're being doxxed and their families being targeted.
The students detained came from across the globe, some on expired visas, others undocumented, and many on scholarship or academic track. Some had lived in the U.S. since childhood. The raid didn't discriminate by field or degree. STEM researchers, law students, and undergrads were among those pulled from labs and lecture halls. Their removal disrupted years of academic progress, research, and community ties. The fallout wasn't just legal, it was deeply personal. For many, this wasn't just deportation. It was exile from the lives they built. The raid sent an undeniable shockwave through the Boston University campus. Lecture halls were half empty. Research labs suddenly quiet. More than 1,500 students vanished overnight, leaving behind vacant seats, unfinished projects, and unanswered questions. Many who remained were left paralyzed, unsure whether they were next. Faculty who had mentored some of the deported students scrambled to provide emotional support, while quietly questioning the institution's role in all of it. Should the university have done more? Could they have? In a country where higher education has long been a sanctuary for dreamers and strivers alike, the raid forced a painful reckoning. What is a university's duty when federal enforcement knocks on its door? Where does compliance end and protection begin? These questions now echo across campuses nationwide, no longer theoretical, but real.
1 month ago, Homeland began a back and forth with Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox, saying in this fiery CPAC speech,
I read a story last night, the police commissioner of Boston. You said you doubled down on not helping the law enforcement officers of ICE.
Sarah Sherman-Stokes with the Immigrants' Rights and Human Trafficking Program at BU School of Law says that put a bullseye on Greater Boston.
It seems like ICE is targeting the city of Boston because the city of Boston has dared to stand up to their tactics of bullying and aggression.
People living here say ICE raids have been going on since the Trump administration started. They say immigrants are being targeted, including non-criminals and people who have updated documents. We're live in Chelsea. Danae Bucci, WC.
The raid triggered fierce legal and ethical debates. Critics argue the students were denied due process, taken without the chance to defend themselves in court. From a moral perspective, the operation was condemned as a betrayal of academic freedom and human dignity. These weren't criminals, they were students, some of the best and brightest. But in ICE's eyes, a visa violation is still a legal breach, and that raises a question the country must answer. When does law enforcement cross the line into injustice?
Cause that MS-13 gang member's friend or acquaintance to also get arrested by ICE. Now they're both going to get deported.
Yeah, ICE is coming. And what was the reaction, Bill, if you got any from some of the residents in these communities?
ICE's presence at Boston University marks a new phase in immigration enforcement. No longer limited to border towns or detention centers, agents are now targeting institutions once considered safe havens. University campuses are the latest frontier, high-value targets where undocumented students seek opportunity and safety. Supporters argue that law enforcement has the right to act anywhere. Critics say such actions erode trust and academic freedom. But one thing is clear. This raid sent a powerful message. Education does not shield from accountability.
It is no secret that immigration is a top agenda item for the Trump administration. Today, CBS News learned that federal authorities are threatening to investigate state officials who don't comply with immigration authorities. So what is the law here in Massachusetts, and can the state shield migrants who are here illegally? WBZ's Christina Rex went out to find out.
Officials here follow the law. We're not a sanctuary state.
Right from the governor's mouth, saying Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state, as President Trump's Department of Justice plans to investigate state officials who don't comply with his immigration policies.
I'm not concerned. I have no reason to be concerned.
Keeley says nothing has changed and that local police in Massachusetts focus on fighting crime, including crimes committed by undocumented immigrants. But just being in the state and undocumented is not a crime. It's a civil violation.
Well, detainers is a different issue, and currently it's governed by the SJC's decision.
This 2017 decision by the state's highest court, which says Massachusetts law provides no authority for court officers to arrest and hold an individual because of a federal immigration detainer.
What has frequently happened is that ICE is effectively asking local law enforcement to take on the role of holding someone for an unconstitutional period of time.
So our law says our local police don't arrest or detain people just because of their immigration status. In Watertown, the police chief is reaffirming that message.
And what I want people to know is I want them to feel comfortable and safe to come to us.
In town, there's a hotel filled with newly arrived migrants. The chief wants them to know they can report crimes without fear of retribution.
Boston University's leadership issued a swift response, condemning the raids, pledging legal support, and vowing to protect its remaining students. But many within the community said it wasn't enough. Why hadn't more been done to safeguard vulnerable students before ICE came knocking? Administrators promised a full review of their cooperation with federal agencies. Yet, for those already deported, those promises came too late. The raid exposed a deeper issue. Universities walk a tightrope between compliance and conscience. That balance has never been more fragile. To many, this was never just about one university. It was about a shifting doctrine. The scale and intensity of the raid signaled a federal policy growing more aggressive by the day. Boston University became the battleground, where academic sanctuary clashed with political enforcement. Immigration advocates now warn that this could mark a turning point, where schools are no longer shielded from immigration crackdowns, even when their students have spent years contributing, studying, and building lives in the U.S. Lawmakers are feeling the heat, with renewed calls for reform aimed at protecting undocumented students who have never known another home. What happened here could be the spark that reignites the national fight for humane, education-based immigration policy.
Law, he says, not a protest or a reaction to a new administration.
We do not enforce federal immigration laws. We don't go around doing raids and checking people's papers. That's not part of what we do.
And that lawyer and immigration expert who I spoke to explained to me that if the Trump administration doubles down and tries to get Massachusetts officials in trouble for not enforcing federal immigration law, the Trump administration could face a number of lawsuits from a number of different states.
The Boston University deportation brought immigration policy to the steps of higher education. Supporters called it necessary enforcement. Critics called it institutional betrayal. Lawmakers now face mounting pressure to protect students and uphold the values of academia. What reforms will follow? Will protections be granted to undocumented scholars, or will IC continue to expand its reach? This event may become a turning point in immigration enforcement, one where the battle lines are drawn not at the border, but at the gates of America's universities. For the students deported from Boston University, the future is a void, uncertain, unplanned, and often unreachable. Many had invested years into their degrees, only to be torn away with no notice. Some will try to start over in countries they barely remember. Others will fight uphill legal battles just for a chance to return. But even if they win, the scars remain. Friendships, professors, research, all left behind. Legal teams and support groups are mobilizing to help. But the emotional wreckage is undeniable. For many of these students, this wasn't just a deportation. It was a sudden erasure of the lives they were building. And that kind of damage doesn't fade quickly.
Bring in Tricia McLaughlin. She's the DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs. I think it's quite alarming. As Bill Malugin was reporting that, Tricia, he and I said, this was all in one day. And this is just one state, one city, one state. How much bigger is this across the country?
Dana, it's even bigger. And I do want to note that these protesters are emboldened by politicians like Tim Walz, who likens our brave ICE enforcement officers to the Gestapo and to Nazis. A Democrat representative, Dan Goldman, out of New York yesterday just held a press conference, again likening our ICE enforcement officers to the Gestapo. Our ICE officers are facing a 400% increase in assaults against them. Meanwhile, they're just trying to make American communities safer.
The raid at Boston University has already reshaped the conversation around immigration. Universities across the nation are now reviewing how they handle student data, respond to ICE inquiries, and defend undocumented students. While ICE frames the operation as upholding federal law, the backlash has shown that enforcement without empathy can trigger consequences far beyond its targets. If raids like this continue, colleges may become battlegrounds in a larger struggle over identity, access, and civil rights. The question now, how far will this go?
As Bill mentioned, just in the last week alone, we've arrested off the streets of Boston MS-13 gang members, Tren de Aragua, convicted murderers, child rapists, truly the worst of the worst, who have been in our American streets with impunity for the last 4 years. And Dana, what's important to remember is that these sanctuary city politicians, their policies create magnets for these criminal aliens to come into these communities because they know that there's not repercussions at the hands of the city and that the city will in fact hamstring our ICE enforcement officers.
As the dust settles, one truth remains. This was more than a deportation. It was a rupture between law enforcement and education, between security and sanctuary. The students removed were not simply names on a list. They were part of something larger, contributors to research, classmates, community members. Their absence is felt in classrooms, dorms, and dining halls. And while ICE insists it was just doing its job, millions now wonder, if students aren't safe, who is?